Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That is the podcast about itself, ourselves, and the self in general. My name is Ty, and I will be your host. As always, I'm joined by my trusty co-host Distance, and tonight we have a special guest, SzarBro. You guys are both on. How are you doing tonight?
What's up, dude?
What's up?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. You guys both have good days today?
Yeah. Worked all day, but yeah.
Yes.
I don't believe you. You never
I'm
have
telling
anything
the
to-
truth.
No, really? Okay. Has work gotten a little better lately, or is it still a shitstorm?
Yeah, it's more stable.
That's good. Okay, good.
At least
good.
one of us.
There's smaller pellets of the poopy.
I forgot you are you clean up after some sort of small rodent, right?
Yes, I'm a poop smith.
Yes, that's the correct term. I forgot about that.
Nice.
What did you major in to get into poop smithing?
I majored in poop studies and fecal arts.
Self-deprecation.
Self-defecation.
Well,
Ooh.
that's actually that's kind of a somewhat on topic tonight, right? It's like the topic tonight, we're going to be talking about self-improvement, personal development. Of course, the title of the episode, you can see. I guess if you got here, you clicked on something, right? But so, I mean, to jump in, what are your guys' feelings on self-improvement? Do you think that it's overall a good thing, overall a bad thing, or it can go either way?
Well, it depends on, I guess, your stance socially. Like I have a big thing, like, the number one rule is always look out for number one being yourself. So that's a pretty big form of self-improvement in its own. When you realize that, it kind of opens up this world to, nothing else matters as long as like I'm okay at the end of the day. But the public isn't really into that.
Yeah, depending. Actually, like in the research for this episode, I found an awesome interview with do you guys know who Ayn Rand is?
No.
Yes.
She's an author. She wrote like Atlas Shrugged and a few other like super capitalist books, I guess, is kind of her fan base. But she had like a really interesting quote that was someone asked her something about selfishness, and she like reworded it as just self-esteem. And then it's like it doesn't have to be negative to be selfish like that. Like caring about yourself above everything else is not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, that's kind of like what I was saying is like, to the social standards, it seems negative and very off-putting. But like, if you're looking out for number one, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as you're taking care of yourself and your selfish needs for whatever it is to make sure that you're fine, like it doesn't matter. That's improvement in its own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I think that what SzarBro is saying makes a lot of sense because even if you have this idea that you really need to be of value or of service to other people, you can't really give anybody anything of value if you don't make yourself valuable. So
yeah.
Even if you are someone that's going to try to do a whole lot for other people, you have to improve yourself to the point where you're actually capable of doing that. And that's just, it's also just part of growing up, getting better at whatever. And that could just be living in general, just getting better at being alive or being human or interacting with other people in a way that's like healthy or beneficial.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that there's nothing wrong with, taking care of yourself, looking out for yourself. Cause if you don't, then you'll break down. Everybody burns out if they don't.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like the hippie, like, oh, I need a self-care day. Like, not like that. I mean, like, I don't even know if hippie is the right thing to call it, but it's like, it just makes sense. Like you're going to burn out if you don't take some time to.
Long-term improvement for sure. Little things that eventually turn into like big things, changing your diet one day a week, going for a run when you're stressed out, as opposed to just sitting in your chair stressed out. Little things like that will end up going long term and hopefully extend life or relationships or whatever it is.
I still remember the first time where I had a crap day at work, and instead of saying, man, I need a drink, I was like, dude, I really need to ride a bike right now. And I was like, that was weird. So then I rode a bike.
But that is like in itself great self-improvement, right? Like looking for a healthier way to handle the stresses that are just part of life.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
I mean, I kind of have like a similar thing to that. Like, I had my last job, I had kind of like just had it. I was miserable. I literally would dread going to work most days, like panic attacks. And I was just like, I just need to find something else. Like anything, I don't care. I took a $3 an hour pay cut, lost all chance of benefits, but I'm so much happier where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Significantly happier.
What were you doing, if you don't mind me asking? You don't have to say like the company or anything, but
I was an overnight shift lead for the world's largest pharmaceutical grocery store conglomerate.
Gotcha. Okay. Was it like the hours mainly, or the job itself?
No,
or?
I wanted the hours. That was fine. It was just like the constant like bereavement of like, you're not doing enough. And it's like, I'm doing everything. Literally everything to ensure that like the day shift is fine for an entire 18 hours while I'm not there.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's weird. Like the thing that like it like broken like the last straw for me was honestly like I had a promotion ripped out from underneath me by my store manager.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, so I'm not appreciated here. Like, okay, it's time to leave.
Yeah, and I mean that, just like you're talking about, looking out for yourself, like that's something that is hard for a lot of people to stand up for yourself and realize when you're being taken advantage of and when like what you're doing is just not worth your time. Or
I mean, you even recently had a situation like that within the last couple of weeks at work, didn't you, Ty?
Yeah, it was last week actually. Yeah, which I still haven't heard anything back about, so I'm wondering what's going to go on with that, but I don't know. Basically, yeah, like he's saying though, I started this company in customer service, and that was I was hired February of 2018, so I've been there for a year and a half at this point. And a year ago now, basically literally right around a year ago, August of last year, I was moved out of customer service into my new department and my new role, and given a different title, given a lot more responsibilities, and there's been no reassessment of like my pay or anything since then. And I brought it up to the person that's I guess technically my boss, and was like, I feel like my duties have changed, my responsibilities have changed, and I feel like I deserve some sort of reassessment or compensation for that. And it took, I mean, honestly, like it was some of your some of your like advice to get me to do that. I'm not really someone to stand up for myself like that a lot.
Now you are.
Yeah, that's all. That's it. That's self-improvement, man.
There
like,
you go.
You
Got better.
Something that you wouldn't normally do, to better yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was just like you were saying, like only in self-interest. Like that was something I did only for myself. Yeah.
So, I think that's something that a lot of people, if you guys don't mind me kind of shifting gears a little bit, I think that a lot of people, there's almost a stigma attached to it, because people think of, have you guys ever seen the movie What About Bob with Bill Murray?
Yeah.
And
yes.
Richard Dreyfuss from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where he's a therapist, and it's like they associate it with that kind of guy, like, oh, baby steps, and they think that it's some kind of thing where it's like, the advertisements you see on YouTube or whatever, it's like, do you want to make better pay? Follow my laws of attraction, and like, or whatever crap that people come up with, whatever steps, whatever silly program. And I think that a lot of people are under this impression that's like what it's all about. When they hear self-improvement, they just think a bunch of whack jobs, like in Yes Man, if you guys ever saw that movie.
Yep.
Where it's like some weird program where like you go to some seminar or conference. I mean, not to talk trash about Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins has a lot of value, and he does a lot of really valuable stuff. But I think those like conferences he has are kind of like Disney World for motivation, like, hey, look at me, Mom.
Well, it's funny because like if you think about the way society's moving, like there's now Instagram influencers, and that's what they do. They're all kind of like, oh, do you want this car? Like, do you guys remember like the super famous like YouTube commercial where it's like, the guy like walks into his garage and he's like, "This is my Ferrari."
The dude's name is Todd.
More important than my Ferrari, this book. And it's just like, all right, dude, like we get it. You read a book, it changed your life. Congratulations. But like, you know, the yes man mentality, the baby step, like that doesn't unfortunately work for anybody. Some people, I am one of those people, have to find out the hard way. Everything has to absolutely crumble and hit rock bottom until there's a new rock bottom until I build myself back up.
Yeah, I did notice, like, doing the research for this episode, trying to find some shit. It is like, there is so much bullshit on YouTube about self-improvement and so many ads that I'm now getting for searching this shit. Like,
oh, dude, it's over.
Yep.
It's like self-improvement for lazy assholes.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm just saying it. Like, I mean, the thing is that if it's not difficult, it's not self-improvement as far as I'm concerned. If it's not something that makes you extremely uncomfortable, you're not getting better.
Yes.
So there's definitely a self-improvement for dummies book.
That is I'm sure there is. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to see if that would have been real. Like
Oh yeah, I mean, it's, you name it, there's a For Dummies book on it.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's
what, I think that a lot of people just need to sort of like let go of the cheese of it all, you know, and like Instagram fitness people and crap like that. It gives everybody this idea of things that's just false. But you know who I think is actually the least full of shit person as far as that stuff goes? David Goggins.
I was gonna say David Goggins. He has the best self-improvement book. Yeah.
David Goggins, like, he cusses like a fucking sailor. He doesn't give a shit. He's real as hell.
I would say it sounds like he's real and not feeding you, he's spoon feeding you.
I mean, he just says like, I think he was talking to, I think it was actually Joe Rogan at one point, where he said that he didn't feel like he was being authentic if he didn't, like, you know, if he shows up to your show and you talk to him and he hasn't like gone for a run or like a grueling swim or some shit, he's like, I'm not being authentic. I didn't even like do anything difficult today. Like I didn't even suffer. So he feels like he has to do that. Like you have to go out and, like, you know, do it, like to actually preach it, you know.
He's the one that's got the "embrace the suck" quote, right?
Yes, I do believe that's him.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Marines say that too.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people say that. Yeah. I think that's a Marine thing. It might be Army. I can't remember. Some people that fight for people say that.
Yeah, I like his idea though of like it's about the struggle and it's about getting getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That there's like a lot of improvement to gain just from that.
And you know, like one thing for me that I think about his style in particular is that the things that I've decided to do, like, you know, I have a genetic muscle disease and I decide I'm going to go do some stuff that's really difficult and it sucks and it hurts like hell. And I have to spend like a week recovering after I go for a mountain bike ride because I have to hike through like pretty much the entire climb and that hurts like hell. And then I get to the top and then I have to get the shit beat out of my upper body going down. But it's like, as I think one of the crises of young men, and I think Chuck Palahniuk actually talks about it in Fight Club a lot, is that there is no Great War, there is no Great Depression. So a lot of young people, but I'm you know, self-identifying male, so I can only speak from my experience that you have to have dragons to slay to feel like you have some kind of purpose. You need to do something difficult to feel like you have a place to put like the sort of energy that you have. And for me, like, you know, I wouldn't mind, you know, swinging a sword on a battlefield getting covered in blood, but instead I'd ride a bicycle, you know, like, or I lift weights or whatever other shit that's difficult for me. And one thing, if you guys watched the Iron Cowboy documentary, I believe it's on Amazon Video. There's a part where I think it's his mom. He did the dude did like, actually I'd like to have him on if we can get him. I don't know how easy that or difficult that is, but this dude did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states.
That is insane.
Yeah, so
that's wild.
Yeah.
There were a couple events like where the last like 5 kilometers or whatever, there would be a whole group of people that were invited to run with him the last 5K. And his mom, who was like really old, like, well, she was in her 70s, but to us that's old. She wasn't necessarily in like, you know, fighting shape, so to speak. And she came out and she ran like 5 or 6 of those 5Ks.
That's wild.
In a row. And he was talking to his mom, and sorry, it's hard not to get emotional about it actually. He's talking to his mom, and the camera's rolling, and I don't think he knows that the camera was rolling, but you hear him talking to his mom, and he says, "But that's hard for you." He's like, "What's hard for you, what's hard for me is something completely different."
Yeah.
And so as long as we're doing something that's difficult for us, it's good. Like if that is going into a large group of strangers at some organized event and doing some social networking, okay, cool. As long as that scares the shit out of you, go do it. You know, jumping out of an airplane, leaving your house, like if you're an agoraphobic or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything you can do. Whatever's hard for you is the thing that you need to do. If all the stories you hear about like people that are in terrible shape where someone gives them the advice, just flail about in your chair.
Yep. And
that can be tiring.
Yeah.
You know, whatever just happens to be hard for you, I think is the way to improve.
Well, that's where like society needs to like kind of figure things out, or that's where you need to kind of deter your opinion from like social media and society, because like, you know, there's like the whole the Planet Fitness, like was it no clunks or whatever, like the clunk alarm.
Oh yeah, lunk.
No lunks, the lunk alarm. That's what it is. Yeah. So like some guy's coming in here and he's benching 450 or whatever, and he throws his weights down, and it's going to upset the guy who's doing 20 pounds. Yeah. But it's like, you know, you guys are essentially getting the same workout. Like I get it. It's like, it's kind of to deter like super douchey guys. But like, if that's what this guy can afford is a Planet Fitness membership, like just let the dude work out.
Yeah. And for me, it like seems really funny.
He's improving. Yeah. He's not trying to deter other people. I mean, he could be, I don't know. But like, you know, that's what's difficult for him. Benching 450 is what's difficult for that guy. Yeah. But like, you know, in certain places due to social standards, like the lunk alarm at Planet Fitness, like he's not welcome to do it there, or it's wrong to do it there, or that's not correct, you know. And it's, you know, it's like you said, like some days for you riding a bicycle is hard. It's like, you know, I could jump on my bike right now and go for 5-10 miles or whatever, and I'd be tired, sure, but I wouldn't be in the same state tomorrow that you might be. And it's like, to you that's way harder, but like for me, jumping out of a plane, it's not even in the question. Not doing it.
Dude, let's do it. Not
doing it. Buddy might just had a birthday, not doing it.
Yeah, he wants me to too. But yeah, like
or bungee jumping.
Yeah, either. But you do bring up a really good point though, that it's all about comparing to yourself. And I think, I forget, what wasn't even like a Jordan Peterson quote, like comparing yourself to who you were yesterday.
Who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think that's a big part of self-improvement, is too often like you're either comparing yourself to other people, or even you're looking at just the goal that you want to reach and comparing yourself to that, rather than looking at the incremental steps you're making along this journey.
Yeah. And you know, like I had a fucking crisis involving that with like weightlifting, because you know, I might have told you this before, but when I was like growing up, I remember the first time I was like maybe 6 or 7 years old, I saw bodybuilding on TV, and it was like Flex Wheeler was my favorite. I think since then he's had like at least one heart attack, but he was just jacked. It was ridiculous. And like I saw these like huge like superhero looking monsters on this stage, and I was like, that's awesome. So like for months and months after that, I'd walk around our place in my tidy whities, like flexing and shit, like everywhere. Like I was like, oh yeah. And that's like, I just thought that was cool. And that's like what I wanted for a long time as a kid. And, you know, I exercised with my dad, and I kind of got into weightlifting at 15. And it was always kind of odd to me that I could get, because I don't know if you remember when we were younger, like I actually was pretty jacked. Like I wasn't big, but I had really toned muscles, like in my little tight like rock band shirts. Like I looked pretty good.
Yeah, you were always really cut. Yeah.
Yeah, but over time, like I wondered why I wasn't really getting bigger. And then, you know, December of 2010, like I'm diagnosed with, you know, muscular dystrophy, and I'm like, everything I ever wanted to be is gone. Like, I did jujitsu, I did Muay Thai. Like, I can't fight anymore. I mean, I was never gonna be like, Mr. like Jack Shredded. Like, I was never gonna be a International Federation of Bodybuilding pro, but now it was all these things that I couldn't be anymore. So I had a crisis where I had to accept the fact, like, you can't compare yourself to these people.
Yeah.
Like, there is something wrong, and you will never be any of that, and you have to accept it. And it's like, it's difficult because, it sucks when I'm on the greenway on my road bike, and like, the funny thing is I'm a pretty serious cyclist. Like, I'm crazy into it, but the stuff that people do to like race and like make good times and shit, I gotta do that shit just to fucking ride.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of heartbreaking when I'm like, just, cruising, pushing pretty hard on my road bike. And then all of a sudden some like, 62-year-old woman and her like husband like just blast by me. And I'm like, what the hell? It's like, oh no, wait a second. Like, you don't need to look at them. Like, worry about what you're doing. Worry about if you're going faster for you today. Figure out your time. Figure out how much power you're putting down. Try to get up this hill in smaller gear than you did last time, or whatever. But it's a thing where like I don't have any choice in that stuff. Like, I have to compare myself to who I was yesterday because everyone else pretty much has an unfair advantage over me that has healthy skeletal muscles.
Well, it comes back to looking out for number one, which is like, honestly, I think when it comes to self-improvement, I'll be the focus on. Like, if you don't, like, you're not making any progress. Unfortunately, it's just a constant comparison, and some people it might work and it might like kind of boost them, and people of competitive nature might be like, oh well, if they can do it, like I got to do it, but I got to do it better than they can. But like at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself and just be like, is it good for me? You probably, if you wanted to, could have caught up and blew past that couple, but
would have paid for it later.
You absolutely would have paid for it later.
Because if that's on like mile 8 and I've got 12 miles to go, I'm like, no. And there's a lot of temptation when you see people, like, even when I did that Century event, there's a lot of temptation to try to stay on people's wheels and stuff. Especially at the beginning when I was fresh, where I was like, wait a second, like, you got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Maybe chill out.
Slow and steady, right?
Yeah, slow and steady. I mean, a lot of the time, like at the end, you can kind of decide that you want to have nothing left and just hit it for the last 20 miles or so. But you got to wait, till the end before you because you got to use whatever you got left. There's a lot of things that I think excuses that people make, or reasons that they may cite for not getting better at certain things or getting better in general. But I guess I think before we go any further, if you guys would be so kind, I think it would be a good idea to share exactly what it is that we think of as self-improvement. Like, what does it actually consist of? And what things are you changing, and what domains or arenas of your life would you say you need to make those changes in?
Okay. Well, let's let SzarBro go first.
Mine I only kind of learned in the last couple of years, really. Pretty advocate on like, oh, I got to be a better me. I got to be a better me. But for me, I guess like a new avenue is I need to be a better me for other people. I kind of ended up in this really weird, jaded spot for a few years. And, ever since meeting the lady, she's kind of brought a lot of really different aspects to what self-improvement really could be. And things that like I didn't realize I was doing that are kind of shitty for like years.
Gotcha.
And so like, I try to be a better person, not only for me, but like, but for her. And as of the last couple of years, it's kind of like where I've spent a lot of time. It's just kind of being like a better person, not necessarily physically, but maybe emotionally or mentally. Mentally, I struggle with a lot, damn artists. But, yeah, I just kind of take things, instead of baby steps, I look at them in 24-hour periods. I look at them one day at a time. Like, okay. Do I feel good today in comparison to yesterday? Yes or no? Well, what was different? Like, what could I do better? Is there a way I handled some sort of some sort of situation in my relationship or in public that I could have probably done better? Or, and just kind of really map out a better way to handle that situation and see, if I have to communicate better or whatever it is. And as of the last year and a half, 2 years, that's kind of where I've been, is just trying to be a better person on that front.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. For me, it's a lot of, got a lot of self-esteem issues and self-image issues, and just feeling like I need to improve, and I guess how I see myself, which is in itself self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing for me. What about you, Distance?
It's so I guess my perspective on self-improvement is it's pretty broad. I think that generally speaking, the stuff that SzarBro said about communicating better, that's important. I mean, we need to be better at interacting with other humans and determining things in relationships, be they friendly or family relationships or romantic relationships, even relationships with children, where we need to identify things that don't work or are unhealthy and change them. It's important to stay in reasonably good physical condition, I think, just for health reasons, and on the subject of being better, in a better place mentally, exercise helps a lot with that.
That I learned recently too.
And in the same regard, being in a good place mentally is good for exercise. On the sort of people like David Goggins, that's 100% mind over matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can take all the performance enhancing drugs you want, but if you got to run for 3 days straight, that guy's going to beat.
Yeah.
Just because he won't stop. And I think that the other thing, to broaden it to other people, not just myself, I've obviously worked on self-esteem for a long time myself, and I've gotten a lot better at, you can imagine how being diagnosed with a debilitating illness would wreck your self-image. So it took a lot of work. I mean, it's been almost 9 years, and I'm really now at a point where I'm starting to feel comfortable about it. But I think a lot of it is that there's generally things we need to get better at, which is pretty much everything I just mentioned. But I think that every person needs to identify which sort of maybe optional things, or for lack of a better word, extracurricular things that are important to them.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you can decide, to elect to be good at, that aren't maybe necessary to be a better human in general, but can be good for you to just be better at. For a good friend of mine is a competitive darts player, stuff like that. My dad competes in poker. And I got several friends that are way into certain types of gaming and stuff like that, and they've got goals in those things. But it's about balancing all the different ways we can be better. And one thing that I think is important to mention is that a very good tool for self-improvement is a therapist. It's not just for crazy people, guys. In fact, it might not be for crazy people at all. Actual clinically insane people. I mean, a therapist can help you get better at a lot of things, get you in a better headspace. Hell, I went to see I've been seeing a shrink off and on for 11 years. I went to see that guy 3 weeks before my race. Hey, dude, help me achieve this goal. What do I need to say? What do I need to think? Where do I need to be on mile 60 when I feel like I want to die? I realized that was really wordy, but I was trying to also make it broad.
The way you just worded that too is really important, both about therapy and about self-improvement. It has to be internal, both of them. When you said, help me do this, you're not going to a therapist to fix something. You're going to them for them to help you do something, bring it out from within yourself.
It's not like it's not like paying a cardiologist and, they hack your sternum open and sew in some new arteries. Like they're fixing you. And you don't have anything to do with that. But yeah, with a therapist, it's a collaboration. And a lot of people will go to one and they'll be like, that shit doesn't work. But since it's a collaboration, you have to find someone that works well with you.
Yeah.
Like SzarBro plays in bands. I'm sure you played with tons of people where you just didn't vibe. Like and it's like they're like the rhythm section was like weird. Like the drummer and the bassist didn't like really sync up, and like you couldn't really get what they were doing, and they wanted to just do completely different stuff. Or you got someone who maybe their tone doesn't fit into the mix, and they're unwilling to change it. So you can't like just play in one band and it doesn't work out and be like, I'm done with bands.
It's funny. I actually like, a big thing is I think with self-improvement would be compromise, to be honest, especially if you're trying to improve socially. I used to play guitar in a band, and the other guitarist, funny enough, like we had a very hard time like writing together. I like to write very structured. I'm a very linear guitarist. Like I see this song and I want it to sound like this, and then I want to go to the next part and da 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 da. And he was very like free flowy, but he had to like the song to begin with. If he didn't like the first riff, he didn't want to play the song. And I remember like immediately, like we would like the whole band would jam, and he would literally stand there, guitar down, arms crossed, and just pout in the corner.
Yeah, that's
weird.
And
it was just like, well, that's making it difficult to work with you. But like, is there something that like I can change? But then, it just didn't work out anyway.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yes. That sounds incredibly frustrating.
Oh yeah.
So, it's like, but could you, I think that, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was like, where do we start with improving? Is it too late to get on that, Ty, or did you want to explore this?
No, I was really just trying to get us there. You did it. You read my mind, man. Great job.
Sorry, stepping on toes here.
No, it's perfect. Yeah, so
damn it, distance.
No, so that is a good question though. Like, how do you start? And like, because a big thing with self-improvement is a lot of people just look at what they want to do. They set a goal and they say, I want to be healthier. I want to do the like, and it's a blanket statement that doesn't really mean much. You have to break it down into actual smaller, specific goals that are realistic too, which I think is a big thing.
Yeah, because if you just say I want to be healthier, it's like, well, what does that entail?
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna shoot this arrow. Like, okay, what are you gonna shoot it at?
Yeah, so it's like with something like if someone wants to be healthier, you can break it down into like, okay, well, I want to drink more water, so I'm going to set myself a water goal per day, or I want to eat less processed foods. I want to cut out like fast food or things like that. Like those are specific goals you can work to that will then lead towards being healthier. But you need to set yourself actual specific goals or markers, or you're not going to succeed, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing that I'll say to people a lot when they make a goal is that set a goal and then maybe make a date to achieve it if it's one of those goals, or maybe not. But determine what you need to do, exactly what you're saying, every day to make that happen. And exactly what you're talking about, it's the same thing. Like if you want to read a book a week, well then read 2 hours or 3 hours a day. But when you set the goal, you figure out what you need to do and then forget about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
because you know what you need to do. At some point, maybe try to get like a status report or a progress report of what's happening. And if it doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere, maybe adjust something. But for the most part, if you get too hung up in where you're getting, then you'll be discouraged because you'll feel like you're not getting anywhere. Like if you want to run 5 miles, well, then think of it as doing 5 1-mile runs back to back.
Yep.
And so then 1 mile, 2 miles, 3, 4, 5. Oh, before you know it, you're at 5.
Yep.
And it's like awesome. And I think that's a good way to do it. Or like, if you're doing 30 crunches, count to 10, then count to 10 again, and then count to 10 again.
Yep.
It's like that's the easiest way to do it, I think. So I guess would you guys say that maybe if we set a goal and we fail to set little little daily goals or even hourly goals that you think we just get discouraged by how high the mountain is we have to climb, so to speak?
You can. So I was going to kind of chain off of like setting smaller goals. So, my big thing is music. So I'm going to constantly get back to that. Like my band would set like the goal of, oh, we wanted studio time by X date, right? And let's say that that's 90 days away. Mm-hmm. So in that 90 days, what do we need to accomplish in order to have like, quality recording? And it's, we kind of break it down to, oh, the songs need to be written. They need to be perfected. We need to work out any like tiny nuance kinks, or, what studio do we want to go to? And it's kind of like when you break it, you want like, when you break down your long-term into a bunch of smaller ones, mm-hmm. It doesn't seem so terrifying.
Yeah.
But then, like Distance was starting to say about the having like, one thing goes wrong, like it all goes out of, and it kind of like will send people spiraling. And that's where I think, you just kind of have to be able to, you were able to put yourself into a scenario or a mindset or a situation. You have to, I think it's equally as important to be able to pull yourself out and look at it kind of from the outside in. It's like, all right, this one thing happened. It sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Yes. I can go ahead and focus my attention on this other thing for now that's also going to get me to my goal while I passively take care of this problem.
Yeah.
And, in the end, like you're going to have to do that other thing anyway. Why not just get that early start on it if you have the accessibility and the time now that something else hit the fan?
Yeah.
And that's not saying like, put these big problems on the back burner. Like I said, passively take care of those. Take care of those when you have 10 minutes of downtime, 5 mm-hmm. minutes of downtime, because those things will add up and it'll become a big stressor. All of a sudden you look like Stitch from the Lilo and Stitch movie, and a whole red bad part is just stress instead of bad. So yeah.
That does bring up a really good point. It's not only is it hard, or excuse me, not only is it way too easy to look at one big goal and be intimidated by that and not understand how to break it down, or then deter yourself from even working towards self-improvement, but also on the way to that goal, if you make any sort of small stumbles or anything like that, it's way too easy to beat yourself up and get discouraged.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's okay for competitive people. Like for me, like like let's say I have like a really bad set one night, like mm-hmm. I am a wreck the rest of the night. I hate everything. I'm super like self-deprecating. I'm super down on myself. But sometimes you kind of need those moments to mm-hmm. an extent. I'm not saying like, take your day out on yourself, but like, you do kind of need those things to, one, keep you, to kind of just like, for you to realize like, oh, well, last week I wasn't even close to here. Mm-hmm. Like I tried something new and it just didn't work out, mm-hmm. Next week I'll try the same thing again, or maybe something else that's new that might be a little bit more within my, my arsenal or capability or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I actually respond, I would say, pretty well to a lot of like almost like excessive negativity. External or internal. And like a lot of times it comes off to other people as like I'm beating myself up too much, or I'm like being way too hard on myself. But a lot of times like that is actually like a good motivator for me. Like I know when I was overweight, fat shaming actually like is what motivated me to get in shape. It's like a lot of people, are into like the whole body positivity thing and not fat shaming other people, but it's like I can see the beneficial side of that. And that was a big motivator for me to get my shit together.
Well, you also seem very competitive by nature, in like the month that you and I have been like hanging out, like that comes across like relatively clear, that it's been something that like kind of drives you. And like I grew up playing sports. I am competitive to a so like it's always like I can relate because it's been a big motivator for myself. Like, oh, I couldn't do this week. Like, let's say lifting, like, let's say I couldn't lift 155 or whatever on a bench. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's super discouraging to start, but it's like, all right, let me pull off one cheese wheel and see how easy that is. Or, find a new max, or can I do it one time instead mm-hmm. of having to do a set of 5, whatever the situation may be, as long as it kind of like, you have to find a point where like that competitive energy, that competitive edge kind of begins to motivate you instead of just demotivate. While negativity can produce positive results, an obsessive amount of negativity will absolutely crumble somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Like with almost everything in life, there's a balance there, and it can you can fall easily to one side or the other. But yeah,
I think I can only paraphrase, but the rapper G-Eazy, I can't believe I just admitted that on a public forum. Yes, I'm coming out of the closet. G-Eazy is a guilty pleasure of mine. He's on the list right below Dashboard Confessional.
oh wow.
So he says something along the lines of it's like the next thing I'm about to say is obvious, but criticisms are worth more than compliments.
Yeah,
and I can relate to that whole thing too, because the way that I sort of articulate it is that I feel more driven when I feel like there's an enemy I'm raging against.
Well, so there's the criticism line. There's a fine line that I feel like a lot of people don't realize, that there's a difference between like just blatant criticism and constructive criticism.
Right.
Yes.
And people react to constructive criticism and positive line, and just blatant criticism isn't going to do any good for anybody. I feel like if somebody's just being like, if somebody comes up to me after a night of playing, it's just like, yo, you just suck. And I'd be like, can I help you? Like, there's no response. I have one of my favorite people in the world after our show last Friday was, hey man, do you mind if I give you some advice? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you guys just play too quiet. Okay, I can turn my amp up. Sure, I'll shake the walls, whatever. Like, if that's all you have to say, if you didn't realize that I played like shit on Friday, and the only thing you had to say was you were just too quiet, awesome. I'll happily take that criticism and adjust it. But if he would have been like, dude, just put the guitar away, I'd have been like, you're right, I should just put the guitar away. Yeah,
that's worthless.
That was terrible. Yeah. I'm the worst. Just spiraling, just become fuller.
In some cases, it depends who the criticism comes from. Sometimes it can be hurtful from one person versus another. Sure. And it's kind of like, it's similar to like an ad hominem argument in philosophy, where you attack the person and not the idea or perspective. It's better if you're trying to make constructive criticism to tell somebody about the method and not to say that you suck, or it's using this technique. And as far as music goes in particular, it might not, it doesn't work well in this place or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe you should be downstroking that part instead of alternate picking or whatever. Or like, with running, like, your running style, like, the contact time with your feet, it's a little too high. You could try this, whatever. I don't know anything about running, and I'm just throwing out stuff that runners I know talk about.
Yeah.
But apparently the less time your feet are on the ground, the better, if you're sprinting in particular.
That makes sense.
You'll be faster if your feet are on the ground for less time. So there's like different ways that you can, change that. But if you walk up to someone and says, dude, your running style sucks, then it's like, well, screw you very much, sir. It's like you're going to make people defensive when you talk to them like that. But, it just depends who's, like I said, it depends who's saying it. So sometimes you can just recognize that someone has no credibility. Like someone like walks up to you and like, says, oh man, you play like crap. Like, do you even music, bro?
Yeah. Do you own a guitar? Like,
yeah, it's like,
give me some kind of reference to why give me more than just you suck.
Taking piano lessons when you were 9 does not make you a musician.
Yeah, taking 2 piano lessons.
Yeah. And then deciding that you hated it and then giving up, and that doesn't count.
On the subject of like who the criticism comes from, like that was something that I a lot took to heart when I was like getting really into nutrition and fitness and weightlifting and everything. Is everyone wants to give you advice on what you should eat, what you should do as a routine and things like that. And one thing that I always really, I forgot whose quote this was, but it's like, don't take advice from someone that you don't want to look like. If there's someone that's like, it's way too often someone that was like 300 pounds, super overweight, comes up to me like, what you really need to start eating like? It's like, I'll listen to you, but I'm not going to take your advice. Like, yep.
Yeah, and I feel like honestly, like a gym is a really cool place for self improvement. Like obviously, the majority of people in there are trying to better themselves in one. And I feel like when you especially like New Year's. Oh man, January to March is the worst time to go to the gym.
Oh my
but
God.
At the same time, I feel like all those people who were there throughout the year only are trying to help and trying to be positive. Like, oh, dude, your form is a little off. Like, you would want to widen your grip, shorten your grip, or like, are you taking this much time between sets? And it's like, I feel like it's a really positive place where people are trying to help, but it's just like every single person in the gym is trying to help. And it's like, man, I get it. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I just want to I want to pick things up and put them down.
Yeah. And there's a lot of occasions in which I see somebody like at the gym and I'm like, that person is going to destroy their lower back. But I'm not going to walk up to them and give them any sort of advice because they're not going to listen anyway.
Yeah.
Because if it mattered, they wouldn't be doing the exercise that horrifically wrong.
True. Like you'll feel if something's wrong.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah. There's always like, well-intentioned people. And there's plenty of videos like where, the people that you meet at the gym, like tons of joke videos where there's that guy.
Yeah.
Giving you weird advice on crap that, it's basically bro science stuff.
That was always a big rule for myself. It's like, I don't give unsolicited advice. If someone comes up and asks me for advice, then I'm more than happy to do that. But like, I'm not just going to approach someone and tell them like, hey, you know what you need to start doing? Like that's, I don't know. I just feel like I'm out of place to do that.
I think the only time I've ever stepped in is when I watched somebody who was like absolutely going to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, you shouldn't put that 45 on one side and the 10 on the other. That's gonna once you lift the bar, it's gonna fall off. Yeah.
Actually, no, I totally lied. I did give completely unsolicited advice. One workout session earlier this week. I forgot. Yeah,
Fired.
Well, no, okay. So a girl was trying to do some sort of exercise in the Smith machine, and she kept looking for collars to put on the weights to keep them from falling off. And she was spending like 10 minutes walking around looking for collars that fit. And the Smith machine has a different size bar. And none of the collars fit there because you don't need collars on the Smith machine. So finally, after like
self-balance,
after like the third or fourth time I saw her grab a pair of collars and they didn't fit, I was like, the way a Smith machine works is it actually it doesn't let the weight slide to one side or the other, so you don't really need those. But so that was, I guess, unsolicited advice. But I felt like I was helping though. But maybe I wasn't.
It's like you walked over there, it was like
realized like, oh yeah, well, I guess all for naught. I'm just gonna go work out now.
Yeah, and that's different than like, hey, sweetie, let me show you how to do a military press. Like
let me spot you while you do those squats, chick.
It's like that's it's not like you were that guy. And that's another thing where it's like she's already wasted tons of time. So that's a situation where probably you watch somebody struggle for that long. It's like, dude. And there's sometimes where you see people doing ridiculous stuff and like a lot of these videos, like YouTube videos that people take at the gym. And sometimes I'm kind of like, why don't you help that person? But once again, it's like, will they even listen if you try?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting back to the idea of where to start or how to start. I think one pitfall a lot of people make, or a lot of people fall into, I guess is the way to say that. It's so common to get like self-improvement as a hobby, and you just start buying a bunch of self-improvement books, and you're not really like doing anything about it. You're just reading them, and it becomes like this pointless endeavor in itself. Like it's something you need to do, not just like a content you need to absorb, I guess.
Oh yeah, my I don't know if I would say that one of my sisters does that a lot. And if you're watching, I don't care. It's true. So hi sis, love you. But I don't know. I feel like she's probably acting more on it now, but she just kind of became like a self-improvement book addict. But it's very true. Like, there's no amount of books you can, buy that will help you. And, or I can give you an example from jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
How many books you read and how many jiu-jitsu videos you watch. You're not a grappler until you come roll with us. Like, come grapple, come do the sport with people that want to do it and that care enough to help you and teach you how. And actually that's one of the things that I loved about jiu-jitsu. This is beside the point, but that with the improvement of your opponents, and your teammates, you get better. And there were multiple occasions where I'd go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and somebody would do some crazy thing. Like some guy got me this weird sweep, like where he's it's a sweep where like you go from the bottom to the top, you roll someone like that, not like a sweep where you trip someone.
Okay.
And it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, and I didn't even know what happened. I was like on my back, all of a sudden I was like, what dimension are we in? And I was like, oh my God, I'm tapping out. Why am okay. So later on I walked up to the guy and I was like, dude, what was that sweep you did? It's like, oh bro, come here, let me show you. So it's really cool because you know that when the people you could compete against in the future get better and everyone else gets better, you get better too.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's a really cool thing, because even when you're competing, the idea that they're getting better makes you better too.
I feel like a good place to start would be to surround yourself around like-minded people. Surround yourself around people who are trying to better themselves, people who want to expand on themselves. You know, when it comes to my band, like I went through so many people before I got to up that. I say that because I kind of started the band I'm in. You know, it didn't become the band until like I got this group of guys, but like, you know, when I was just writing, the original purpose was like, I'm just writing for myself, done being in bands. Like, I'm over it. I don't care anymore. Like, it's not worth the stress. And a buddy of mine was like, hey man, if you're ever trying to write, just hit me up. And so like him and I have kind of been building this from the ground up, but like, you know, so many bands fail because of like-minded people. Think about how many teams break up, esports, real sports, doesn't matter, because people just don't have the same mindset. And I feel like if you're trying to better yourself, you need to also surround yourself by people who are either trying to better themselves in a similar fashion or in general, honestly, would probably be the best case scenario.
Yeah, I forget where I heard this, but it's like a popular saying or a quote from someone that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
You are the average of your 5 closest friends.
Yeah, and it's like you need to surround yourself with positive influences or people that are you know not going to be an anchor dragging you down. Yeah. Yep. So so the second part of the topic then, like after starting self-improvement, how do you know when it can go too far or where you need to stop? Because it
obsessive.
Yes, like I know for myself being a perfectionist, it's very hard not to look at every little trait or every little part of myself as something that I need to fix. And it's like,
just you have to be able to identify when an obsession. You know, and I think self-reflecting is a really, really good thing. You know, I'm constantly like, I'm not a good guitarist, I'm terrible, but like if I would look at myself playing guitar 5 years ago, whoa, you know, I'm doing things on guitar that I never, ever would have expected that I can do. Especially because I'm like kind of like self-taught. So it's like learning for me is a little different. But like, you know, for you said you were on this like weight loss journey and like, man, you look great. But like, you know, to you might look like this totally different way.
Well, at this point, it's a weight gain journey. I've lost all the weight. Now.
You lost all you needed. Now you're going the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and it's then just finding like a middle ground for yourself of kind of like, I'm content here. Like, I like where I'm at. Like, you have to find a point of happiness. And if you're not finding that point of happiness in what you're doing, maybe something elsewhere is lacking. You know, physical fitness, you know, like this is saying pairs of mental fitness, mental health. You know, you might be physically fit, you know, best shape of your life. If you still hate yourself in the morning, there's something missing, and it's probably not your physical fitness anymore. It's probably not your physique or your physical health. Yep. There's something else that's lacking that needs to be worked on. And you know, self-improvement is it's a triangle. It's physical, mental, emotional, and there's more than just being shredded or ripped. There's more than being the smartest guy in the room, and there's more than being a total empath.
Yeah, well, I've definitely realized that. It's like I know that, I mean, a big motivator for my the physical fitness journey and everything was you know, trying to look a certain way, like feeling that, you know, that so much of my self-esteem issues came from how I looked. And it's like, oh, well, maybe if I could just look a certain way, then everything will be fine. It's like, no, that's never gonna fucking work. No matter what, the goalpost is always gonna move. I mean, I mean, even Phil Heath, who was the Mr. Olympia for multiple years, even he has body dysmorphia issues. He doesn't see himself as perfect looking or anything like that. If he doesn't, none of us ever are going to, right?
Relating.
Distance, you there?
There's
I don't hear it. He's really, really quiet.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Hey, I'm not sure what happened.
Is he still talking?
At this point, I don't know. I think we may have lost his audio. That's not
no.
good.
Wait, what?
Hey, I can hear you now.
There he is.
How about now?
Yes, perfect.
It's still kind of quiet to me. I can turn you up though.
Need to setting.
Oh. No, it is. Yeah, you are cutting out very bad. Huh. Yeah, one thing I did want to say though, I guess like we started to touch on it, that the whole journey of self-improvement, it's important to not look at it as something that's wrong with yourself that you're trying to fix. Rather, look at it as like you are trying to grow, and you're always you're always a whole person, even though you're trying to grow. And it's, and I think too often it's way too easy to see like the goal you want to reach, what you want to change about yourself, and thinking that that's something wrong with yourself. And I think that can become a very negative emotion and put you in a really bad place. And I know that I've been there with many things.
Well, it's cool. I think I was talking with somebody about it at work. When you think back to like the early mid 90s or something like that, or and I was born in 92, so maybe even further back than that. There's this whole I don't remember people being sad or depressed as a conversation until I was like 16 to 18. And it's like it's such a weird concept now because it's everywhere. All of your peers are sad. Sad boy, sad girl, emo night, emo music. Like everything is kind of like set with this like semi-negative, semi-joking conversation. But it's like when you really think about it, it's this weird. It all kind of happened like with the growth of oversaturation of certain things. Not earlier I said something about like Instagram influencers and like that's what people are kind of looking at. But like, you take reality TV on top of Instagram influencers, Facebook prodigies, whatever the hell there is next, the kingbird of Twitter, whatever.
Yeah.
You're constantly seeing these things and it's just like completely oversaturating your mind where like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not better. Like I could do this better. I could do that better. I'm not tone enough. I'm not buff enough. I don't eat right enough. I'm not good enough at this one thing. This person's better than me. It's like, you have to be able to understand you're never going to be the smartest guy in the room. You might, but there's probably someone who's going to walk in that's smarter. Yep. You're not going to be the top athlete. You might for this year, but next year there's going to be somebody better. Like there's this constant like chain of like, of you have to be content with what you're doing and finding like a medium point where you're like, I'm content here. I could totally still grow and I need to still grow, but like, I don't hate myself here.
Exactly.
And I think, with this oversaturation, like self-improvement now is more important than ever. And people are focusing on the self part. Earlier we were talking about so many people are like quick to jump down on other people. So like, oh, you could do this better. You could do that better. And I'm totally guilty of telling people what they could or couldn't do that's better. But, at the end of the day, I just want what's best for what I think is best for my friends. But like, they also have to want that as well. So, part of my self-improvement would be to shut up and just let people deal with, with their problems in a healthy way for them, as opposed to me being like, oh, dude, but you could do this, or, oh, you should do that, man, because it works for me. But like, that's not going to work for you or Distance or the lady back here. Like, who knows what'll trigger those things for you. But like, it's self-improvement. And I think people need to focus on that a little.
Oh yeah. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah, coming through loud and clear, man. Good.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. To your point, SzarBro, like the thing that you're expressing, that it's interesting because it was easier to be the best whatever before we were so connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you can that there's so many people. You might be able to throw the football the furthest in anybody in your town, but now there's all kinds of people everywhere that you know about that can do it better than you.
Yeah,
dude, I was the fastest kid in school from kindergarten to the 5th grade. I got smoked in middle school.
Did you just say you were the fastest kid in 5th grade?
I really was. I truly was.
Only Greensboro kids will get that reference, but
in middle school, like embarrassed, and I was like, "Whoa," and it kind of like being a competitive person kind of like set this tone of like, I can be better,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's the minute like the world became like larger, everybody felt so much smaller and so much more insignificant.
Yeah. Well, and also like touching back. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Distance.
Well, the thing you said about telling other people what they can do better. There's an interesting one of the subsections in Jordan Peterson's book 12 Rules for Life. He talks about how what was it? I forget who wrote the book. Might have been Dostoevsky. Can't remember, but it's like this guy that's like talking about how it's like a nice guy way before we came up with a name for it.
Okay.
It's like this woman who's like, I think she's a homeless prostitute or something like that. And he has like these weird fantasies about how she's going to like come to him and think that he's so great for all these things that he did for her. And sometimes the thing he talks about is that we think ourselves some noble martyr because we're helping this other person. But in reality, we're probably not doing that much.
Just a pain in the ass.
We're just making an excuse not to do anything for ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's that whole take care of
projecting
you were talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then you're so busy helping this other person, you forget about the fact that there's plenty of shit I need to do better. Why the hell am I worried about this other person? I need to work on me.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
I think another thing too. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. I keep interrupting.
No, go ahead, man.
Oh, I wanted to touch on when we were talking about like, especially in the lens of like social media and like Instagram influencers and things like that. It's so often you're comparing yourself, your real life to an image of their, an illusion of their best life.
Yep.
And it's not even realistic, but you think that because you see a profile that every picture looks like everything's perfect for them, that their life must be perfect, and it's not.
Check the dates. Yep. It's like once every 4 months.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like, we I don't know if any of our audio viewers know, we play a game together called Apex Legends, which is it's a game where you shoot at people basically. But even when we look at the people that are good at that,
take it out of Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Even when that's another conversation for another day. We'll have you back on.
Yeah.
So even in that, like we're watching people's highlight reel. Like we're watching the good days they've had and the good moments they've had in the game. Like you're watching clips of people doing really well. And like we're guilty of it too. Like, we put clips of us playing on Twitch when we're having good moments. And everybody does that. So you watch all the other players and you're like, oh man, everybody kicks ass but me. But then when you look statistically out of the amount of players that are in the game and the amount of teams, that it's a 1 in 20. What is that? 5% chance of winning.
Yeah.
And everybody has that 5% chance.
Yeah. Dude, think about selfies. Everybody like you upload, you take 400 pictures to upload one.
Yeah. Well, think about when you first start dating somebody and you try to portray this other side of you, get yourself all done up and crap.
The best side of you at your peak, you're feeling yourself, you're making sure you look right. Yeah. And then it's like 2 months in, you're out here in shorts and a hoodie.
Yeah.
When in reality, you should have been in the shorts and the hoodie the whole time. That's you. And like someone that I'm dating right now, she mentioned something about like how she's going to be like sort of in the middle of getting her hair done and it's going to look like crap. And she didn't want to see me. And I'm like, eventually we're going to see each other looking like crap. We may as well get it over with now.
Exactly.
Just get smashed.
Shatter the illusion already. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, she's seen me like super gross and sweaty after like a mountain bike ride covered in dirt. So I'm like, you've seen me look like shit. So it's like, people, a guy that I used to work with used to say, when you start dating someone, you send your representative.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
I like that.
And I think it's so ridiculous because like we come up with all these ridiculous ways to hide from each other.
Yeah.
And then that makes that whole comparing yourself to other people even more of a fallacy, which I think is kind of the point of what we're talking about anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and just like we're starting to touch on that with like the problems that you have internally, the imperfect, aspect of being human. It's interesting with self-improvement that the self is the one that has to do the improvement, and it's the imperfect self that is already struggling with something that has to be responsible for the improvement.
Wait, say that again. You lost me.
It's okay. So like self-improvement is all on yourself.
Right.
It has to come from internal. And it's interesting that the imperfect self you are is responsible for the improvement. You are in a spot where you need or want something to improve, and unfortunately it's all on you to do that improvement. You're not like, there's no one that can give you a hand up. There's no one that's going to lead you to the way. Like it is yourself that has to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of done in like 5 stages. Yeah. It's kind of done in 5 stages. It's like a realization, it's a plan, it's the action, it's the reflect, and it's the response.
Yeah. It starts with self-awareness, right?
Yeah, you have to realize like, all right, maybe I need to change something. And then you make this plan, and it's kind of like, oh, what do I want to do for this plan? And then it's acting out the plan no matter what it be. And then it's like, okay, so I did it for X amount of time. Look back at where I was before. Let me see where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you decide whether or not to keep going with this or if you're content with yourself.
Yes. Yep. Definitely. I do want to okay, so I had this Alan Watts quote, and unfortunately, I can't find the video of him saying it, but I like this quote enough that I'm going to read it to you guys. You are not going to improve the world, and you are not going to improve yourself. You are just what you are. Once you have accepted that situation, you have an enormous amount of energy available to do things that can be done. And everybody else looking at you from an external point of view will say, my God, look at how much so-and-so has improved. I think it's really interesting to not even focusing on improvement, just focusing on doing what you can do. And by doing that, you're going to improve relative, in other people's eyes.
Well, so I was just taking a look at chat. Trump Tits 69 said, honest question, what if you know something is wrong and needs to be improved, but you don't know how to fix it? Well, I think that's step 1 is already done. So you've realized that there's something that needs to be improved on. Yep. And that plan can include or even the action can include research. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what's the matter. And we went back and Distance said, seek a therapist if that might work. And then I saw earlier Goth Spice had said that she went to 4 different therapists before she found one that really did help. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to, it's never going to be an overnight change. Yeah. It could take you 7 years to get to a place where you're like, I am mentally sound. I'm okay here. If that's what you're going with.
Yeah. And I mean, to address that, the remark in the chat about, something is wrong and be improved. I'm assuming this is something personal, so I'm assuming that it would probably be something that's more psychological. And in that case, what SzarBro is saying, pretty damn valid. I mean, that's the only place you really can go, because you need someone who knows what they're doing, what to look for from the outside, to be able to advise you outside of the schemas and other types of frameworks you've built up.
And honestly, it doesn't even have to be like an actual therapist. You don't need, and I'm not saying this because I don't go to therapy. I'm not one to have somebody sit in a room and tell me what's wrong with me. That scares the absolute shit out of me. But I'll, if I'm having a bad day, I'll just call friends, or I'll call my mom. I don't, no shame, mama's boy here. But even then, that sometimes it's just somebody else realizing, or somebody else helping you put the pieces together to realize that oh, this is broken to me now. Maybe this is something I can improve.
Yeah.
As long as you're able to identify that with yourself, that you think something is wrong, whether it's actually wrong or not is completely your circumstance.
Well, that is interesting, because that's something that I wanted to talk about, and also something the Big Dog 79 just said in chat. It's sometimes it is hard to find that line of where something needs to be improved or where it's just a trait. I know that I fall way too far on one side, where every little thing about me I think is something that needs to be fixed. versus I think there's a lot of people on the other side that they embrace things that are probably character flaws as just, oh, well, that's just who I am. I see so often like, I'm just a bitch and that's just me, or things like people say stuff like that. And it's like, well, maybe that's not a good way to be, or maybe that is something that should be worked on rather than just something that needs to be embraced as part of who you are.
Yeah, someone I work with today just proclaimed themselves to be lazy, and I was just kind of like,
that's another one. Yeah.
Like, well, I'll just leave that one there. But if I'm being honest, I think Alan Watts is kind of a quack. It's too like Hindu guru for me. And
okay, yeah.
I've met a couple like guys that themselves that they're just ridiculous. Like so everything about that quote collapses on itself immediately. Like there's like, it's wrought with like, most of the stuff Alan Watts said is wrought with like fallacy and word. How do I know word? Oh, too many words. This is embarrassing as hell. Oh God, I'll think of the word later. It's when contradictory. Good Lord.
Okay.
If I had to take the SAT tomorrow, so screwed. Yeah, so like that particular thing, like it's like accept change. If you accept who you are, then you'll just do things, and as you do things, they'll be better. But you're accepting that you just do what you can do, but you won't get better if you do what you can do in that situation.
Okay.
I don't know. I have one of the books.
Like, well, he talks about the way that the quote is kind of, I would say directed is almost to like a social standpoint, because then it kind of falls away from self-improvement, in the sense of like, doing what you can do for you, but like it might not do what's best for everybody else, essentially, and that, coming full circle comes back to, you have to look out for self-improvement. And like, while the quote collapses in a way, it does make sense. Like it does still kind of lines of like, you are still supposed to do what's absolutely best for you. You might not necessarily need to sit there and be like, well, I am who I am. That sucks. Again, I did that for years up until the last couple. However, if you don't think you need to change, that's a very different thing.
Yeah. I think that, and we've talked about this before, if something that some people don't like about you is not objectively bad, or if, like, for instance, talking a lot is not an objectively bad.
Yeah.
Or talking little is not an objectively bad. Being outgoing is not an objective. Some people might be annoyed by you because you're outgoing. They might be annoyed because you talk too much. They might find it frustrating that you don't talk a lot. But those are things that you really do just need to say. Like, if you have a problem with it, fuck you.
That's the problem I have.
And while that's a very simple phrase, I choose that particular one very carefully in the situation.
Well, so Big Dog, you said that being natural includes holding yourself accountable. I mean, like, if you're aware that you suck, as let's say, like, not you, but let's say that, like, I just don't care about anybody's opinion with anything, and let's say I'm totally content with that. Like, let's say I don't think that I need to improve on that. I mean, like, I can be holding myself accountable, but it doesn't mean that I want to change, because like, maybe I think I'm fine. Maybe I think the people around me are just too soft or marshmallowy or whatever. That's when it again falls to like a social standpoint. And like, however, those people generally suck. But it's a self-improvement thing. It's a self-accountability, self-reliance sort of point. That I guess is what we're trying to make.
But on the other side of that, I've heard way too many people like fall, the other side of that coin, where they think everyone else is the problem in every situation. Have you ever met the person that they think like that every single one of their exes is crazy? All 30 of them, they've never met
every single one of them. Yeah, and they're not a problem. Right. And that's, again, it's that's what this is like. I guess that point that Big Dog is making can be so like, I think, pulled around and pulled apart, is because it's like, yeah, you can totally take accountability for yourself, but it doesn't mean that you're going to stick to it. It doesn't mean that it actually means jack squat to you. Like, for years, I was totally okay with being very jaded and closed-minded, and like, within my own rights and belief and things. And it's like, up until recently, I was like, okay, I was kind of a piece of shit. And, it takes time to work on that. Mm-hmm. And holding yourself accountable is absolutely one of them. But there are people in this world who just aren't going to do that, and they're going to fight it to the ends of the
SzarBro, I'd like to actually touch on that, the whole thing about being jaded and such.
Yeah.
Hold on. Are you guys still there? Having trouble hearing?
No, I can hear you.
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay, never mind. Just cut out for a minute. So when you say that you were feeling jaded, exactly like what did that entail? I mean, what specifically were the feelings you were having about?
Okay, so like we'll go to kind of like, I guess, how my band started is the last band I was in just kind of like fell apart in this like super weird way. And I was just like, I've had it. Like, I'm done with musicians. I'm done dealing with other people. I don't want anybody else's opinions. I don't want anybody else's input. I don't want anything from anybody. Like, I can do this on my own. And that's a big problem I have is like, I can do this. I dug myself into this hole. I'm going to dig myself out. But like, there's like these feelings of like anger and resentment and, weird spells of depression that kind of can come along with that sense of being jaded. And, it just kind of takes time to, even if you have to separate yourself away, reflect, maybe I didn't help some of those decisions or some of those situations. But unfortunately, like not everybody's going to think, there are those people who think they're holier than thou, and they're not. They're never going to see that they're up for anything.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I was asking, one of the chief things that kind of entered my mind when the conversation came up, like the subject of this came up for the podcast, was that there's nihilism, and there's like a lot of different definitions of nihilism, different kinds, but specifically the one that I'm talking about is existential nihilism, the idea that meaning is something that's fleeting, that we exist in a universe that doesn't seem to have any kind of purpose. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for the absurd, and absurd like in the philosophical sense, meaning looking for answers in an answerless universe is absurd. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of people have this idea, and to quote Jordan Peterson, it is not clever to talk yourself into insignificance. So like a lot of people will use a nihilistic perspective, like you're going to die, we're all going to die, the universe is temporary, eventually everything's going to end, that includes me, so there's no point in getting better. The thing that happens is when you believe in these things, it removes responsibility from you. Nothing you do matters.
Correct.
And I think that a lot of nihilistic people will say, well, what the fuck does it matter? Or, the common phrase, well, you're going to die anyway, do you really want to be the best looking corpse?
Yeah, I hate that.
But it's like,
you're gonna die anyway. ...
Yep.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be a positive thing, but in this case, like you can use it as a positive. Like, why be afraid of this when you die? Mm-hmm. Go talk to that person you don't know, because this is gonna kill you anyway. I think that's a positive way to look at it. But there's plenty of times where people say, like, since everything's temporary, there's no point in anything. And I think that the whole idea of like the existential philosophy is that, there used to be this idea that, you have a purpose because a God made you, and you have a purpose made by that God. And there's these little flecks of light in the sky, and those were made just for us. Mm-hmm. And we're in the middle of this great thing, and this like yellow orb thing comes up and it sets, and we call it the sun, and it rotates around us. And we're unique because we're a thinking animal. We are special. Then after a while, we're like, nah, those are not little specks of light for us. Those are burning balls of gas, billions and billions of light years away. We are actually rotating around the sun, and eventually it's going to die just like every other star, and our universe is destroyed, and we're basically just a bunch of animals, human. And in that mess, now you exist. And so the idea of existentialism, okay, you exist, that that predates your purpose or your essence or your reason or your meaning. So now that you exist, you have to find a meaning.
Yeah, you exist, therefore you have
right. So you have a responsibility to find. And I think that the best thing that we can do to help people get better is to make them acknowledge first, like, dude, this is a poor philosophy. Like, thinking that nothing matters because you're going to die is not, it's not clever or interesting. You're not intellectual. You're not clever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are.
No, but they're trendy.
Yeah, I suppose. ironically negative or whatever. And it's like, it's just tired. It's worthless. And I've gone through that too. That's why I asked you, because I want to kind of compare notes, because I've gone through that too, like thinking a period of nihilism. And I think that it happened when you start to figure things out and learn things, and then you realize that the world doesn't you get older.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was absolutely like a weird learning curve, because like, you know, when you know, team sports, team anything, when you're working with others, you kind of are forced into like a group think tank, whatever. And everybody's ideas kind of become one idea over time, and then it's like you kind of start to feel like you lose part of yourself in that. You know, you are your 5 best friends, and it's just kind of like, yeah, where am I? Like, where do I fit into my 5 best friends? Or where am I in my 5 best friends? Where am I? Where's my opinion? Where me? And it's just kind of like, it almost falls into like this sense of almost like narcissism, but it's kind of like everybody, and then it falls back into having a purpose. Like, well, then what's my purpose in this? Like, does it react the same way if I'm gone? What changes when I'm gone? And I just kind of like, in my scenario, I just had it. And it kind of put me in this place where it's like, no, I can do this myself. And instead of the whole world revolving around me, it was I'm going to take care of everything, and there's nothing that's going to be able to stop me. And I learned very quickly that it's just not the case.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, so the journeys that we've had.
I really like that quote, Big Dog.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Where is that from? Is that an original, or is that actually from somewhere?
And I guess for people who can't see this, it's be yourself, accept yourself, believe in yourself, gather your courage. Judging is easy. Acceptance is for the brave.
Yep. Yeah, I like that.
It depends on where.
Pretty sure that was Lincoln. Abe Lincoln said that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I read that on his vlog.
I don't believe you. Yeah. So.
Damn it.
So everyone's personal journey with self-improvement has been different in many ways. It seems like Distance, you spoke about earlier, like you've had an ongoing struggle with self-esteem, and to a point now where I don't want to say that you're done, but I think you've got a good handle on where you've been, where you're going, and I think you're at a point where you're comfortable with yourself, right?
Yeah, more or less. It's doing everything as far as I can get it without comparing other people who have an advantage over.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna compare myself to Lance Armstrong or Bernal, the guy that just won the Tour de France. I'll never be those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I'm in a good place. Yeah.
Good. I mean, and for you, SzarBro, like your journey of trying to just basically be a better person, like interact with people better, and just be a better, I don't want to say influence, but just for your presence to be, something that's positive for the people around you. How do you feel like? Go ahead.
I definitely kind of like just run through like the chain of emotional, mental, physical. Like, I will focus on one thing until I'm like really content with where it is, and then I will put that one on the back burner. And I go to the next one, and then I'm content with that one. I go to the next one, and then by the time I come back to that first one again, I'm a totally different person. So I now need to readjust. And I kind of find myself spiraling out of control, and just kind of redoing the same thing, but like at different points in my life. Therefore, they have like different reactions. And it's interesting to like kind of look back and reflect. Like I hadn't really thought about it until you hit me up about this podcast. And I was like, damn, 5 years ago, I was very different. And a quick anecdote, like when I was graduating high school, even before that a little, when my parents divorced, I was in a terrible mental place. Obviously parents split up. No 14, 15-year-old kid wants to go through that.
Yeah.
And events transpired, and I didn't speak to my mother for about 3.5 years.
Ooh.
Earlier I said I was a mama's boy. it's true. But like, you know, she would intentionally make herself physically around so that I would like, so she would think that I would have to acknowledge her. I would choose not to because angsty teenager.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's so weird how different that person is compared to the person that I am now. Like, and the relationship that I have is just like exponentially different in a much positive way.
Mm-hmm. Good. But it's like, I feel like the, at least what you spoke about in your, as far as what you're looking at it for self-improvement, is there really an end goal though? Or is it just an ongoing, like you want to be better?
I just always want to be better, man. Like for people around me, for my family, for myself, I just kind of, you know, humans are adaptive and we're evolutionary creatures. And I don't really feel like I'll ever be content.
Mm-hmm.
I will be content for fleeting moments. But I don't think, you know, I think if I'm lucky enough to live to 80, that I will still be trying to improve myself in some way, whether it's, you know, my back and legs are messed up, so I want to get off the couch. I don't want someone to hand me my paper this morning. I want to go get the paper myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, tiny goals.
Yeah.
Like I'm always going to be trying to improve. It's just the kind of person I am.
Well, I think that's important. I think it's a big part of being human is that, I mean, when you stop learning, when you stop trying to improve, I think that's when you're dead, right? Like you need to always be trying to be a better version of yourself.
Agreed. And, you know, I think the best way to avoid overdoing it is to acknowledge the fact that it's and that perfect will never actually happen.
Yeah.
And then that you can also improve in different aspects. Like you might find one thing in one aspect of your life, get to a spot where you're really good at that and realize there's focus. Then when you're done with that, you might actually realize there's a problem in the other place you'd already improved. And as long as we just don't allow ourselves to get discouraged, wrapped up in the fact that constantly so improve, because you know it's like it's more important to have a life because I think
And you cut out a life of what?
Yeah.
Of meaning than happiness.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you find a life that's meaningful, you might find yourself actually being happy as a result.
Well, you know, when I bounce around from like improvement section, I guess, to improvement section, I kind of like for just even a brief moment, whether it's a day or a week, a month, whatever, like, you know, that's kind of the only like downtime that I feel like I get is because I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm cool here. This is nice. Like I saw where I was, you know, X date and I like where I'm at now. And I'm just going to kind of hang out here for a little while. And then, you know, something will stress me out or whatever. And it's like, okay, time to change.
Yeah.
Something else to work on. Back to work. Rise and grind.
Well, I mean, what are do you guys have any closing thoughts? How do you want to wrap this up? What do you?
I just think it's, you know, if anybody is gonna I just hope people learn to like focus on themselves and to quit paying so much attention to other things, man. Like we're oversaturated. There's so much of the world. You are 1 out of 8 billion people. That's with a B. Like there is just so much out there. Like just focus on you. Be happy with you. I feel like, and I hope that eventually the world will be a much happier place. Everything's so fucked up. Sorry, that we just have to focus on us at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Or nothing's gonna get better.
Distance, what are your closing thoughts?
You know, I think that the way that we've spoken about this for the most part has been people that have understood what we need to know what we want and have taken the time, the effort to be able to do it. But to anyone that's listening that feels generally lost, they want to get better, everything's wrong, and they don't know where to go, you're not alone. I've been there, and all you got to do, get up, go clean your room, clean your apartment, clean your house. That's it. Go do that. That's where you will start. And I promise you, after that, everything else will fall into place.
I like that.
It's a good place to start, for sure.
My biggest thing is I just like we've touched on, accepting yourself does not mean thinking that you're perfect. You can accept yourself and know that you're growing, that you're trying to change, but don't look at what you are right now as something that's wrong. Whatever you're looking to improve, what you are right now is okay. Yes, there's room to improve, and yes, you want to grow, but you're still okay as you are right now. Growing, like having a goal, is like accepting who you are now and still wanting to grow is not a bad thing. And well, I also want to say I'm very sorry for the audio quality on this. If you're listening, Jesus, this is not a representation of what it normally sounds like. I'm going to make sure I get this fixed before next week. I apologize. I have no idea what the fuck is going on with Discord. But this will bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, be sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to keep up to date with the conversation going on here. Comment below and let us know your opinion on self-improvement. Tell us about your journey. I'd love to hear it. If you're interested in taking further part in the discussion or even being a guest on a future episode, you can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode. It's going to be live Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/TylerTV. And thank you all for listening.